I found some old stuff about my wife and I don't know what to do. Hello all. Using a throwaway account, as my wife follows my main account. Beforehand, I'm sorry this is probably be a long post. A bit of background, me 39M and my wife 37F, we are not married, but I don't like partner/girlfriend, are both in our late 30s, have been together for 10 years, and have a 2-year-old and my partner is currently pregnant with another boy. For the most part, our relationship has been great, we have our ups and downs like most couples, but we are mostly good friends and great partners in life. However, there was always a thing in our relationship that in the last couple of months have been bothering me. Our sex life. In the first years, everything was fine. I wouldn't say that we were a huge sexual couple, but we did it a few times a week, and I was fine with it. 3 into our relationship, we were living together for a while, and we started to get pregnant. Unfortunately, we weren't having much success, so we went to the doctors. The next years, our sex life changed, and it became almost something mechanical. We had to do it at specific times, a specific way, tests and more tests, month after month of disappointment, and to be honest, it was no longer fun. We then did 2 cycles of IVF, in vitro, which were not successful. At this time, I would say we had sex 1 or twice a month. Luckily, we eventually got pregnant naturally, and we were both over the moon, but there was a lot of stress, cause we had lost a girl before, so, during this time, I didn't push too much on our sex life, and I believe we only had sex a couple of times. When our boy was born, well, most of you know how newborns are, so in between work, stress, sleepless nights, and well, opportunity, we didn't had sex for the first year of the kid. After that, we started having sex again, but I always felt that it was mostly a duty for my wife. I always had to slowly seduce her for 1 or 2 weeks. Until she eventually was in the mood. Again, luckily, we got pregnant a few months ago, and again, basically our sex life stopped again. A couple of times I tried to initiate sex, but my wife is always not in the mood, or tired, or too much pregnant. As I don't want to be a a-hole, I kind of back off and stop trying. Everything was fine, I kind of have accepted that for the next month sex was off, but last month something happened that is making me rethink everything. My son still wakes up a lot during the night, and most nights, my wife goes and sleeps with him, almost always on the clock. At 5 a.m., the kid wakes up for good, and wants to go play and watch cartoons, and usually I go with him, while my wife sleeps a couple of hours. Before Christmas, I gave my wife a new phone, and his old one because the phone for the kid to watch cartoons, I know he shouldn't, and one early morning, I grabbed the phone, opened Google, and on the main page, there appears the recent visited sites, and on one site was Korn. I know it wasn't me, or my kid, and I knew it was my wife, probably on her new phone, because it still has her Google account linked on the old phone, so it syncs. To be honest, I just laughed a bit, deleted the site from recent history, and business as usual. I didn't thought too much of it, maybe some friend told her about some specific video, or better, maybe she got horny and didn't want it to bother me. A couple of days later, the same happened again, and this time, well, curiosity took the best of me, and I checked her browser history. I found out she was basically watching porn 2 or 3 times a week, after I went to bed early. I wasn't mad, but a bit disappointment, but still, I tried to put myself in her shoes. Maybe she isn't feeling sexy, or doesn't have the energy for sex, and relieves herself with corn. I didn't say anything, but for the next thing, that was always on my mind. I have gained some weight, maybe she wasn't attracted to me anymore, and I did a thing that I'm very ashamed of, because her account was still linked with that phone, her social networks were as well, so I went into a rabbit hole. My worst fear was that she was having an affair, but I think she isn't, as there are no recent chats or messages from any recent guy. Out of curiosity, I searched my name. As expected, a lot of results appeared, but one message kind of stood out. It was basically XXXX is kind of ugly, but I like him. I opened it and it was a chat with a girlfriend from 10 years ago, when we met each other and were still friends. I read a few more messages, and it was like a punch. She was basically telling her friend that I was ugly, that I didn't had the good body of YYY, but I was a nice guy. I searched for who was YYY, and I discovered it was a guy she was with for a few months before me, and that before him, she was with her official ex. When we started our relationship, she told me that she was single for 2 years. Now I discover that in the 12 months before me, she was with at least 2 guys. I checked the chats with YYY and her ex, and find out they were still talking for the first 2 or 3 years of our relationship. To be honest, the conversations are not that interesting, but maybe it's my head, but I kind of find a hint of flirting here and there. Another thing that bothers me, is that reading a bit of the chat with that girlfriend, she looks much more sexual than she is in our 10 years. She talks about all the marathons she does, the positions she tries, even anal, something she told was off limits. Maybe it is girl talk, I don't know. With all this, my self-esteem plummeted. I feel ugly, unattractive, betrayed, and to be honest, used. To be honest, these last weeks I've just tried to be alone as much as possible. I've been staying late at work, I've woke up more in the middle of the night and moved to the sofa. I really don't know what I'm going to do. The only good part of this is that I've kind of felt an urge to get back in shape, and been hitting the gym more often. Thanks a lot for taking the time to read. What would you do in this situation? Update. Hi all. I'm not really sure what is the correct process to do a follow-up, but since I've been receiving some messages about my situation. First, I would like to tell all of you that although I haven't replied to most of comments or messages, I did read them. I just wasn't in a great place mentally. Now for the update. The day I did the post, and the day after, I was probably extra down, and my partner noticed it, and kept asking me what was wrong. At night, after our boy went to sleep, she asked again, and I could no longer hold it. I told her what I did, and what I had found. It wasn't pretty. She started crying and basically yelling at me about going through her phone, which I understand. She never talked about what I found, just about how mad and disappointed she was with me. Since she is pregnant and was getting stressed and nervous, I didn't push it too much. She went to bed after, and I stayed in the couch. The next 24/8 she didn't talk to me. The day after, again at night, I pushed the subject again, and told her that we should talk, and she agreed. What she told me, I assumed that in her mind would be comforting, but it was far from it. Long story short, she basically told me that after she broke up with her longtime ex-boyfriend about 3 years before we met, which I knew of, she felt free, and decided to explore the world. Therefore she had several relationships and short romances with several guys, but she knew how society saw that, and decided to not tell me about it. She then told me that after she broke up with the last guy I read the messages, she decided she was done with playing around, and decided to settle down. I asked her if I was that, just a guy she settled with, and she answered that I was much better than those guys, because I had my life on track, I had goals, and was financial secured. I pushed a little further, and asked her if I was not stable, if she had ever had anything to do with me, and she answered she probably wouldn't. She again started to cry, and confessed that although she loves me, she was never physically attracted to me like she was with other men, and after all the problems we had trying to have children, she now saw sex more like a task than a pleasure. I asked her why did she kept talking with those guys years after we were together, and she told me it was just to boost her confidence, that she never cheated on me, but it was nice to feel desired. At this point I was dying inside, but kept a straight face. She asked me to go sleep with her, but I told her I needed some time to process, and I stayed in the sofa again. I didn't sleep at all, and during that night, I think I've accepted that the person I fell in love with was just an illusion. The next morning I went to work, but was able to make an appointment with my family lawyer. I was honest with him, and told him that I was still unsure what I was going to do, but I needed to know financially what were my options and responsibilities. He told me that by default our country laws assign 50-50 co-parenting, unless there is some violence or parents' agreement otherwise. And that if both parents are working, there is no payment to be done to each other. For the newborn, the court would probably mandate that the baby must stay with the mother in the first months, but the father must have visiting time, and after the first 6 months, 50-50 co-parenting. Regarding the finances, since we kept most of our bank accounts and assets separated, we wouldn't need to split. We would only need to split the house and the cars, if they don't get an agreement on one buying the other part. Here, I would lose, since most were paid by me, but we would need to split 50-50ths. I stayed working late that day, slept on the sofa again, and the next day before leaving for work, I told my partner that I needed some time, and would be staying a couple of days at an hotel. During this time my partner kept calling and sending me messages, but I just told her we would talk in a few days. To be honest, I just needed some time alone to get drunk and sleep. When I got back home a few days later and we talked again, I told her that I knew what I did was wrong, and that I have no problem with her having a bit of a fun phase, but that I was really hurt about she not being attracted to me, and me just being a stable guy. I also told her that I still hasn't decided what I would do, but that for the time being, I couldn't see her as my loving partner anymore, but if she was okay with it, we could start counseling and see where things go in the future. So, this is our current situation. We had 2 sessions now, and to be honest, they haven't helped much, but we will continue. My partner have tried to be more affectionate, and tried a few times to have sex, but I declined and told her I was not ready for it. I've also started to spend more time away from home, spending more time at the gym, having fun with my boy, going for dinner with friends and colleagues, etc. I still love my partner, but I can't look at her the same way. Our newborn is due for early April, and I know this will be the big test for our relationship. But to be completely honest, at the moment, I'm kind of accepting we are done. Do you guys have any advice how we can move forward? Thanks a lot to everyone for the messages and kind words.